and welcome, folks. Another episode of the Auto Trends podcast. I am your host, Gideon Williams. We have an exciting episode ahead of us. Again, we continue to immerse ourselves in the industry of automotive parts. What are automakers doing? What is the future? How should you begin to tool your business for the future? We obviously know that the last 20, 30, 40 years of our industry has been a lot of the good old boy system. It has been a lot of selling and buying based on relationships. Technology was never a focus. Technology was ever pushed in the industry. Late 90s, early 2000s, we see the rise of e-tailers. We see the rise of Rock. We see the rise of Amazon. It was a part of a lot of those contracts early in their world of development. But I'd say today we're at a different phase in our industry. Technology is continuing to move forward. We are seeing a massive adoption from technicians. We have aging out technicians, and we have new technicians, new people coming into the industry that are tech savvy and tech focused. So today, guys, is going to be an awesome episode. We have a great guest, but before we do, as always, I'm your co-host, Gideon Williams.
Absolutely, and I'm Luke as well. And I'm Gideon. I am super excited for this episode. I think it's one that you and I have been really looking forward to for a long time, and that our listeners are going to find extremely helpful. It's going to kind of tie, I think, everything that we talked about for the last several months on our podcast, just kind of tie it all together. They're going to hear from someone, which I'll let you do the formal introduction, but they're going to hear from somebody that literally started from ground zero with their e-commerce platform and grew it to wildly successful, which he'll tell us exactly later how successful it was. But this is a truly inspirational story. And I think, a lot of the emails we get, a lot of the calls we get from the viewers, this is going to be exactly what they want to hear. And, Mike will be able to explain his processes, how he did it, how to succeed when he did succeed, and then looking at today's market, how you can succeed in this market. So again, viewers, please like and subscribe. That's how we keep this thing going. So please make sure to share this when you see it. So we really appreciate it. And
Awesome.
Gideon, I'll let you formally introduce Mike.
Yeah, guys. So it's really not even a guy that we can give a big enough introduction to. It's really a parts visionary. It's a guy that basically saw an opportunity early in. He's been in the automotive for his whole career, and he'll share some of the details. But basically, starting from, hey, I have an idea and a vision. I see the market moving to an online portal. I see, that massive, 400 billion plus market. The online piece is continually being adopted. It was in a visionary of it. It ties to so many successful e-commerce programs. The latest being, taskaparts.com, and being a part of that development and developing it and founding a company before that. Mike King is in the house, baby. What's up, Mike?
Wow, thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here today with the guys, and I hope I can live up to that intro, because I don't know, it sounds like some pretty big shoes to fill.
Well, I don't know, Mike. We got a little special intro for you, because we're going to give you the VIP treatment right now, baby.
Ladies, okay, here we go.
Bring it on.
The party has just begun.
We thought this music was designed for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see me jigging to this.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, it makes you get jiggy right out of the gate. Oh, I got it on a loop. I'm gonna go and apologize. I gotta get that crap out of here. Who let them do that? Who let them do that? Who let them pull that on? That's
we need to talk to the higher ups about that.
I'm telling you, get these guys out of here. They don't know what they're doing, man. No. Well, that's awesome, Mike. Well, yeah, first off, man, really thank you for committing your time. We are very, very gracious and thankful for your presence. Again, as we kicked off Auto Trends podcast, our whole vision was about bringing the industry together, bringing insights, initiatives, and supporting that with no ties. I mean, really just all about bringing our industry folks. I've heard the statistic that less than 1% of our industry professionals have really in-depth knowledge on the automotive parts technology, where it's going and how it's evolving. A lot of times they just pitch it over to their IT team or pitch it to one person in a massive org and say, "I'll go figure that out," right?
Yeah,
But what I'd love to understand, and we could just go into it a little bit, is walk us through how you got in the industry. What was some of the things that influenced you early on to even get in automotive? It's like this nuanced industry that I got lucky even to get in, and now it's like there's no way I can get out of it.
Well, I'm kind of the same story, to be honest. My family has been in automotive for third generation. My grandfather started a private repair facility years and years and years ago. When my dad got out of the Army, he joined my grandfather and took it over and ran that. And the plan was for me to join my father. And when I saw that this was in like the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. And when I saw where the industry was going for private repair shops, I decided to take a different track. I says, I don't think this is what I want to do. I want to be in the dealership environment, not the private repair facility environment. So I took a short stint. I was an automotive machinist for 4 years, building race engines for a small company in Massachusetts. And then, ultimately ended up in a dealership environment and knew nothing about parts. Freshly married, needed a job. And they said, well, I actually applied as a technician. And they said, we don't have anything, but we got a spot in parts if you want to do something in there until a slot for techs opens up. And that's where it started. And I've been in the dealership environment for parts ever since. So pretty much 40 years. I started in 84. Wow. So been at it for a while.
Wow.
Ran was a counter guy for 2 or 3 years. And then ended up as a parts manager kind of by default. The gentleman that owned the dealership where I was at was a co-owner of another dealership on Cape Cod. And he says, Mike, I want you to go interview for a parts manager's job at this store. We need somebody. Small store.
Yeah.
So I went down, I interviewed, got a call from the dealer that night and said, hey, Mike, we like, what we heard. Looks like you got the skills. We want to offer you the position. And I thanked him for the opportunity and said, you know what? I kind of like what I'm doing, where I'm doing it. I think I'm going to pass. And the next morning, went to work, standing there at the counter, and the dealer comes down and he throws his arm around my shoulder. He says, I don't think you understand. He says, you don't work here anymore. And he promptly walked me out to my truck and said, you're late for work. So that's how I ended up in parts management. It was
wow.
Congratulations,
right.
Here you are.
Yeah.
Voluntold.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was with that company from 89 until 2009 when they went out because of the economy. 08, 09 took them out. But during that tenure in 06 is when I went to the dealer and I said, we need to be online. This is where this industry is going.
Yeah.
And he really wasn't a fan. But I convinced him because I had a pretty strong wholesale operation at the time. So we were contributing. And he kind of gave me the nod and said, well, he says, I really don't believe it, but okay.
And how did you know, Mike? How did you know what he didn't know? What gave you that insight, do you think?
On the retail side, so I was lucky enough during the time I was with the dealership, we got to build a brand new dealership. It was during the time when GM was really kind of promoting dealers to build new facilities. Yeah. So we built a brand new dealership and I got to design the parts room. And I purposely designed it so that my office was directly behind the tech counter and the retail counter. There was a partition wall that separated them, but so that I could hear what's going on. And what I was hearing was at the retail counter, somebody would come in and they'd come up to the counter looking for something they needed, and they were greeted with a grumpy parts guy, because parts guys don't like retail customers.
Right.
They don't like anybody.
True.
Right. Yeah.
So I would listen, and someone would come up to the counter and say, "Hey, I need a tail light for a Silverado or Sierra, whatever it was." And the first words out of the guy's mouth was, "All right, I need your VIN." Well, they don't have it with them, so they go back to the truck, they get the registration, they come back. The parts guy looks it up, says, "Yeah, it's $300. I don't have it in stock. I can get it in a couple of days. And oh, by the way, you got to pay for it now." Then the customer would leave. Then they would come back a second time. So the whole interaction was just not customer friendly.
No.
So, I said, there's got to be a better way of doing this. And I'm thinking to myself, well, online parts buying now is in its infancy, and people, it's a much better experience. Why come and deal with a grumpy parts guy when you can sit at your desk at home with a cup of coffee or a cold beer and order your stuff? Get it in the same amount of time, pay less money for it, even with shipping involved. So that was kind of what drove me to start it. And so we did it. We started in 2006. And this was before Revolution even existed. And first couple of years were bumpy. I made all the mistakes rookie people make, especially, early in this industry where there
that was early. That was really
there wasn't
early.
great tools like we have with Rev now. I mean,
That was really early.
It was painful.
Yeah.
It was painful. But we got started. I had, first it was just myself watching for emails and orders. Then, I got fortunate enough that I had to hire one person, and that turned into two, that turned into three. And we were starting to do, some numbers. And my focus was always on customer service.
Yeah.
The customer, answer the emails right away, pick up the phone right away, give them the information that they want in a friendly manner, because it's all the things they aren't getting at the parts counter at a dealership.
That's right.
Yes.
So that's kind of where it began, the nucleus of it began. And then, unfortunately in 2009, and being management, it's easy to see the signs of trouble when you're in management at a dealership. Bills don't get paid in a timely fashion, all those things that spell trouble.
Yeah.
So in 2009, when the dealership failed, I went to my wife and I says, I got two choices. I can either go look for another parts manager's job, which in 08, 09 weren't very plentiful, or I can take this concept that I've started with the online store and see what I can do with it on my own. So that's what I did. I took a leap of faith. I mortgaged our house, and I basically told her, I says, if this fails, we got to go live with my mother. So she was damn sure that I worked hard enough that it didn't fail.
I don't want to eat mama's pancakes. There, Mike. This got work.
So I rented 1,500 square foot contractor bay in an industrial park in Wareham. I wanted this particular industrial park because it was perfectly centered between three main highways. And the interchange was literally 2 minutes down the road from the industrial park. So it was perfect. You could go anywhere, or vendors could come from anywhere.
Yep.
Right.
So we started 3 people, 1,500 square feet in a leap of faith, and worked our tails off. And about a year later, I was very fortunate. My very best friend in the world is a brilliant businessman. So I coerced him into joining me. I know everything there is to know about parts. When it comes to the world of business, I didn't have a great education, so I asked him to join me. He was already retired. He had sold a wildly successful insurance company.
Yep.
And within 2 years, we had built the business to the point where we bought our own building, paid cash for it. renovated it with cash, had a staff of 11. And the building was small. It was only 5,000 square feet, but it was ours. And from day one to so 09 to 14, 5 years later, we had built what was $0 to $5 million a year in business.
Wow.
And
That's
you know,
awesome.
we were doing great. We were doing fabulous. You know, making good money, putting money in the bank. And then, you know, when my buddy came on board, part of the deal was, he says, you know, I'm already retired. He says, I'll give you 5 years. Then I'm gonna go do something else. He's a crazy entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So I said, all right, that's a good deal. I like that. And by then, at the end of the 5 years, I had the business education that I wanted, which is why I wanted them. So we started talking about succession plan and what the company was going to look like. And, you know, one thing led to another, and we ended up getting connected with Bob Tasker. And we kind of knew him in a roundabout way anyway, because that's where we sourced our Ford parts. Because we weren't, I mean, I wasn't a dealer. I was a private team.
Yeah.
So I had a Ford connection, a Chrysler connection, and a General Motors connection. And I did all of that with no inventory. We would place our orders in the afternoon. The vendors would come by the next morning. I had one overhead door. They dropped the order. I had 2 people that would process orders, pack orders, and then all that stuff went back out that same door that night. So I had no money tied up in inventory. And so that's Bob incredible. Came down and had, you know, took a tour of our building, which took all of 30 seconds. And he says, you know, I've got an online operation too. He says, I've got, you know, millions of dollars in inventory. I've got tons of people. I got a 60,000 square foot warehouse. And, you know, I'm looking at your operation and I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing wrong, because we weren't that far apart in sales. He was doing about 9 million a year at that point. I was doing 5. So we connected. You know, it seemed like a good transition. You know, Mike was retiring again. So I teamed up with Bob. I sold him my company, and we teamed up and started working on TaskerParts.com. And I was with Bob for 7.5, almost 8 years. And in that time frame, he was basically working out of his wholesale warehouse. The team had one aisle at the far end of the warehouse to work out of, and then they had a call center. So we kept evolving and emerging, and ultimately ended up buying a standalone warehouse, 25,000 square feet. That was nothing but pack and ship operation. We didn't store any parts there. Doing 1,000 orders a day, big international business. You know, it's amazing how many of these cars are in Europe. In Australia. I mean, you know, our cars are everywhere. People don't realize, you know, the path that we take. So in that 7 years, we grew the operation from that one spot in his warehouse to, we had a call center, we had a pack and ship operation, we had a warehouse in Illinois, and we developed some relationships with dealers around the company to be fulfillment centers. And we grew it. When I left in 2022, we had grown it to roughly 2.2 million a month in business.
Wow. No, that's phenomenal, because, you know, Mike, a lot of our listeners, this is very, very inspiring to them again, because, you know, you're talking that, you know, you started from ground zero, and like you say, not with millions in your bank account, that you were extremely wealthy when you started and invested a ton of money into it. And, you know, you grew it essentially from the ground up. And that's what, you know, our viewers are inquiring about. And that's why they want to listen to you today, because they're interested in getting started, but their idea is that this is a big monumental task to take on. when they're contacting us, they say, well, I probably can't afford to do this. It's been, my lifelong dream. I'm not a wealthy guy, but I've always wanted to do something online, have my own parts company, get into automotive, but they just feel that, it can't possibly be me. I don't have the resources to do it. I don't have the connections to do it. I don't have any relationships with WDs or manufacturers. How can I possibly get started? But, I'm sure you'll go into that with Revolution Parts and, how that ecosystem now is even much simpler than originally, obviously, when you started.
Oh my God. Yeah. In the beginning, like I said, it was painful. The resources that we have available to us in Revolution Parts are 10 times, 20 times what I had available back, 06 to, I discovered Ibrahim and Andreas and I found them, it was right in the infancy. I don't know what my customer number was, but it was low.
Right.
I think I was probably in the first 20 or 25 customers that adopted Revolution Parts when they came into existence in 2013, late 2013, I think is when I met them.
Right.
And I think, to be honest with you, that turned the corner for us as far as we grew probably 2 times in that last year that I was an independent because of the Revolution platform. Because the one that was before that, I won't mention their name, it was clunky. It didn't work well. The SEO value wasn't great. And, it made it difficult for somebody who doesn't know a ton about e-commerce to be successful.
Yeah.
Whereas with the Rev platform, it's all about common sense, customer service, and a little bit of sweat equity. And the platform will take care of business. It will do everything that you need to do. It's search engine friendly. It's easy to use. The shipping component works really well. There's just so many things that I just didn't have in the beginning. It's,
and I think Revolution Parts as well, and Gideon, you can comment on this as well, but I think the one important thing with the platform now is if you're getting into this e-commerce business is that platform is reinvesting their dollars back into constantly improving the platform. So the platform that you start with today shouldn't be the same platform in the next year. It should be constantly evolving quarterly. You're adding new products, you're adding new manufacturers, you're adding new WDs to your website, new products, and it should be constantly evolving, not something that's sitting stagnant, but something continually evolving.
Yeah. And the thing, one of the things that I love, of course, now that I work for Revolution, I love them even more. But one of the things that I loved about the platform is they're open-minded to change and improvement, and it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be Revolution's idea. So many of our dealers that are on the platform now are really sharp people, and they have great ideas, and they just continually help us evolve and refine the platform and add features that nobody had thought about yet, or take a feature that works great, but maybe put a tweak on it and make it even better. And so, I'm constantly talking with one of our engineering teams as a go-between, a dealer and them, and saying, hey, if we did this just a little bit different. And that's kind of how, all this excitement around aftermarket and WDs and fulfillment partners, that all came about. Its infancy came about 6 years ago. And it was a conversation between myself and Ibrahim and Andreas saying, listen, I have so much business that I can't handle it. We were getting killed.
Yep.
I can remember, not very fondly, walking into the office on a Monday morning and finding 5,000 new orders in the queue.
Goo.
And going, okay, what do I do now? I've got, a staff of, in our call center, we had roughly 15, 16 people. It was starting to cause problems. You can't get through that amount of orders fast enough to keep people happy.
Yep.
So I said, I need to start teaming up with rooftops around the country and start funneling some of these these lower value, lower risk, less complicated orders out of my call center and leave the stuff that really needs somebody that truly has a parts background of some sort to deal with. So that's how we came up with the routing configuration to work with WDs, to work with dealerships. That all came from a conversation of, look, guys, I need help. I'm kind of screwed here. Here's my idea. Can we make it work? Yep. And they were fabulous. They flew me to Phoenix. We spent 3 days in one of the conference rooms with the engine. We had a small engineering team. There was 5 or 6 people, and Amy was like, she's the one that really made it happen. Mm-hmm. And we just met. We whiteboarded it and said, all right, here's the vision. This is what I needed to do. These are the conditions that I want orders to meet in order to go where they need to go. And we built it. And and it, it works. It still works today. I mean, and it's kind of how we're building out our aftermarket features.
Well, I can tell you from experience, Mike, and I'm glad I know you now. Because I can actually ask you, because I came up through the WD world and I was always looking for Tasca parts to figure out who the man was. Reached out about 500 times. You think you can fulfill some from our WD, man? That's what my whole goal was. I was trying to figure out, who is this Tasca guy? What are they doing? Because that crap is all over and I want to fulfill from a WD's perspective. And that was years ago, man. I mean, that was, I came up through the parts house and Excel world and developing out that whole e-commerce division. Similar stroke of luck, right? Met David Honig and he go, wow, our e-commerce sucks, throw him in there. Right. And then I'm like, oh my God, this is horrific for losing money. Like I started to learn, peel back the business. And then at one point I just, you guys, you've been on my radar for a long time. I just never broke through, and it's, but I think it's an incredible test to pushing the limits, pushing forward, moving your vision from a vision to reality. And, Lucas and I talk a lot about this on the Auto Trends is we think about technology because we do believe it's going to continue to move forward at a very aggressive rate. Mm-hmm. And we talk about this all the time is when you're a manufacturer, when you are a e-tailer or a retailer, whether you're drop shipping or you have parts on the shelf, is we talk a lot about technology and we talk a lot about generalized versus specialized, right? When you go into this specialized world of automotive, kind of to your point, you fly down to Phoenix, work with Amy, I think you said, and that whole team, and you now take your vision and build this from the ground up. That's a partner right there, man. That's an OG right there. I mean, that's like, hey, these guys are in it for me and the betterment of my business, which naturally they will. And, talk to us a little bit about, and now you obviously work for it, Revolution Parts, right? So, I'm guessing you never moved into your mother's house. Is that correct? Yeah.
No, we avoided that.
Yeah, that's good.
We avoided that. I love parts. I really do. It sounds corny, but I mean, I love this industry. It's what I know. And it's been very good to my wife and I. I mean, we've made a really, really good life for ourselves doing what we do.
It's awesome. And again, that's, Mike, I bet you that, that's why you were successful, because I'm sure your passion, came across when you were dealing with your customers, you were dealing with your suppliers, your manufacturers. I'm sure that passion comes across, when you speak about it, and, your genuineness as well, with it.
I do love what I do. And, what we do is not, it seems complicated when you don't know about it. But it's, it's really something that any parts operation in any dealership, any aftermarket company, and it's nothing that somebody can't do. You just have to immerse yourself. You have to believe you can do it. So you got to believe in yourself, obviously. but it doesn't take I don't have a college degree. I'm a high school graduate. I'm nobody special. And it's just, do I believe in myself? Do I believe that this can work? And then, some sweat equity. I mean, nothing's for free.
Yep.
But, if you put a little bit of effort into it, and one of my favorite stories, as proud as I am of building my company and helping Bob build his company, and, I was wildly successful in both. I was really successful at Tasca. I was very lucky. Bob has a passion for parts as well. He wanted to see the online stores grow. He basically gave me an open checkbook, which definitely helps.
Yeah, that's cool.
But what made it successful was attention to customer service and processes. Stick to design a process to complete a task within the operation, and then stick to it every day like religion. And one of my favorite stories outside of Tasker and my company is when I left Tasker, I had a little bit of free time on my hands, and a local Mazda dealer called me. He says, "Hey, I understand you've got some time on your hands. Would you consider helping my parts manager? We have a Revolution store. He's doing good, but I want to do better." He says, don't misunderstand me. I don't want to be Tasker. He says, but I do want to build it so that it's a nice revenue stream that I can count on. So I said, all right. So I went down and I worked with the parts manager, nice young kid, name's Chris. And it was a 2-person parts room, very tiny dealership, very tiny parts room. And I started going, all right, this is the secret sauce. I'm going to show you everything that I know. And none of it's going to cost money. Everything I taught this kid how to do didn't cost a dime. And he was doing about $15,000 a month when I met him, which is very respectable for a little Mazda store. I mean, he was doing well.
Absolutely.
And the dealer said, well, I'd like to get it to $100,000 a month. He says, that's kind of my number. I said, okay, it's doable. So I started working with him. And I said, all right, this is what you do as far as customer service. Every day, these are your processes. Processing orders, taking care of business. This is how you handle problems. And within a year, he went from $15,000 a month. He's doing $150,000
Wow.
a month.
Wow.
And,
Phenomenal.
and not one red dime. He's still doing it with 2 people in the same parts room with the same inventory.
What a success story. Like
Wow.
what a success story.
I mean, he's a great guy. But he believed in it. He says, I know we can do this. And I said, yes, you can. Let me show you. And that was it. I mean, I watch over his shoulder all the time, and I give him a little flick on the back of the head when he doesn't do something the way he should be.
Yeah.
But I sent him a congrats the other day. I says, hey, another milestone. You're averaging 150 a month.
Unreal.
He says, yep. He says, now 200's the next step.
That's right.
Right.
So I actually called the dealer and apologized. I said, yeah, I know you only wanted $100,000 a month. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, exactly.
Good
but I
problem
think
to
what's
have.
the unique thing, Mike, with Revolution Parts is the fact that they're solely focused in the automotive industry. That's what they are. They're building this platform for. They're not into selling clothing. They're not into selling food. They're not. They are solely focused. Their whole team is completely focused on the automotive industry. So they're talking to dealers across the country every day. They're talking to general managers, VPs, the CEOs. They're hearing the pain points, from the manufacturers, the WDs. I know they've got their own marketing in-house agency for marketing as well there. So it's kind of the whole package that, Revolution Parts is going. And again, they're immersed in the industry day in and day out.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
see, I know some other platforms, some of our listeners and stuff, they message us and email us, and they're on some other platforms. Again, we won't name names, but that they're kind of very diversified, great e-commerce platforms, do a phenomenal job, but they're not auto focused. And I think, in the auto industry, there's a lot of little nuances and niches that if you're not focused and don't have the ability to adapt the technologies around that, then it's not going to be as successful.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. And, the team at Rev is so focused. Rev's a respectably sized company. I mean, we're closing in on $1 billion a year in revenue.
That's awesome.
And
that's insane to me. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome.
And the it's a decent sized company. You know, we've got staff basically all over. You know, there's a lot of great talent that works from home, kind of like I do. And but yet, I can't tell you how many times I'll see an email thread or a Slack message thread that involves either a challenge that we're trying to solve for a dealer or whatnot, and the CEO, the two founders are in. They're in that conversation.
Awesome. That's awesome.
You know, I mean, the whole company, they just eat, breathe, sleep, dream the automobile business. This is all they think about.
Yep.
So I've gotta ask, because certainly I think about it and I love the industry. It grabs you in a way that I don't even know, can't explain it. I did not think I'd be in automotive. I never thought I'd love this as much as I do. What's the future? You talked about aftermarket, you talked about distribution, you talked about manufacturers a little bit, you just touched on them. What do you think the future is when you look at the aftermarket, when you look at the parts industry? Do you kind of have any insights into that you can share?
My personal opinion is this thing is just going to continue to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. The buying public has been spoiled by the likes of Amazon and whatnot, where they're used to convenient instant gratification. So the days of people walking into the parts dealership and buying stuff at the counter, they're going by the wayside. It's like everything else, you know, life evolves.
Yep.
So you have to, you really do have to have a presence online, and you've got to go out and get a piece of the action. I mean, right now, you know, $1 billion a month is nothing to sneeze at. But when you think about aftermarket and OE together, and being able to source that stuff online, it's, what do you say, 500 billion a year is what it's anticipated on being.
Yeah, 2029, 532 billion, CAGR of 4% growth.
Right.
I mean, these are, you know, and we see technicians aging out. We see industry folks aging out that typically didn't run their whole career on technology. New people coming in.
And that's all they know is technology.
And that's all they know is tech. They're like, what do you mean I can't get it from my phone? Are you kidding me?
Yeah. And making the platform even more convenient, not only for the buying public to get what they need from home, you know, for the DIYers and whatnot, but even in the dealership environment. I mean, I've already floated an idea past Ibrahim, which he's given me the green light to start working on, where a technician's going to be able to order parts right from his stall while he's got a wrench in his hand.
That's awesome.
Wow.
You know, awesome. So it increases technician efficiencies. It reduces, you know, touch points along the process for both the tech and the parts guys. And, you know, I mean, especially not just in a dealership environment, but in a privateer environment, it's tough to run a private garage. That is not an easy life.
No.
And 99 times out of 100, the owner of a private garage is in a bay with a wrench in his hand. He doesn't have time to be sitting at an office calling somebody, hey, have you got this? Hey, have you got that? You know, I want to see that guy with a headset on like you've got, you know, Bluetooth, open up the app, order the what he needs on the Rev platform for same day delivery from his favorite supplier, whoever it might be, whether it's in town or if it's 3 states away, and keep wrenching, keep making money while he's ordering those parts. You know, I see that as part of the future as well, is just finding ways to take the Rev platform and just further engage the people that need the parts, whether it be private people, whether it be professionals.
Yeah, and that's what I've seen as well. Even coming from my background from the distribution world, I had so many calls with manufacturers, aftermarket manufacturers, about how do they grow, you know, their online presence. Historically, they can't go direct to consumer because they don't want to be in channel conflict with the distributor.
Mm-hmm.
But what we've seen is that more and more manufacturers that look to go potentially direct consumer connect and tie in your distributors, right? Your WD partners. So now, the old saying, the rising tide rises all boats. And I think that that's been a major gap in our industry. And that's really why the creation of e-tailers happened, because we had this need and this demand naturally, organically grow from the 2000s to the 10s to the 20s and in the future. And the distributors historically are B2B. The manufacturers are B2B. So there's a lock in, well, where's this product? Now you see begin the rocks and all these e-tailers begin to pop up. So I think manufacturers are going to evolve. I think that the partnerships are going to become tighter through technology. And I think we'll continue to see an evolution in this space. We already are seeing it, but I think it's only going to continue to compound. And I think that, kind of to your point, you got to start thinking about it today. If you're not thinking about it today, you got to think about it tomorrow. You got to think about it before action happens. And I think the folks that are really forward, whether you're a manufacturer, whether you're starting out as an e-tailer, whether you're a distributor and you're thinking about how to grow your online presence, if you're not thinking about it today and you're not kind of putting together a plan of action, again, the plan of action, there's successes and failures, to your point, right? Early on, you're like, we did the best. We had a lot of learnings, but now look at you, right? There's that evolution of growth, and that happens no matter where you're at, what you're doing, what company you're with. That is always that is there. And so I think devising a plan today really will set people up for the future. And your story alone, I think, is incredibly empowering for a lot of folks, even thinking about it or want to take an action. I think it's just awesome to see.
And I don't think, Mike, and you can comment on this too. When you're thinking about implementing, if you're a small dealer, a large dealer, or you want to be an e-tailer, I think the key thing to remember is you don't have to jump in and spend tens of $20,000 or $100,000 and hire 10 staff tomorrow and have them all set up. I think that's a recipe for failure. But just maybe walk somebody through, if I'm a dealer or I'm an aftermarket guy or I'm an e-tailer wanting to start up, what's the best way that you've seen success stories at Revolution Parts? How do they start? Is it on a big scale or, step by step by step?
Yeah, no, it's small incremental growth. That's really the secret. Big spikes in growth causes nothing but chaos, i.e. those 5,000 orders on a Monday morning. Yeah, great.
Right.
We just got $5 million in business sitting there. We can't process it.
Yeah,
and we teed off all those people.
Yep.
Some of them we were able to save. Some of them we lost. So that's not a good recipe. The recipe for success is slow, methodical growth. Start out. Don't add people. Right? Absolutely, do not add people. Start out. Learn your processes. Develop a routine. Processing orders e-retail is kind of like daily life. You get up, you brush your teeth, you take a shower, you get dressed. You do the same thing in e-retailing. Order comes in, you do X, Y, and Z. Part comes off the shelf, you do X, Y, and Z. And as you grow, those processes need to be modified, because obviously volume will give you a pinch point somewhere. So you modify your process, but then you stick to the new process. And what that does is it makes it easy to manage, because you know exactly what is supposed to happen, where and when, and by who. And it makes a process that a customer can rely on, because they know, especially after you've had them for one or two orders, they know, okay, I'm going to place my order on this day. It's going to show up on this day. It's going to arrive, pristine, packaged nicely. And that's how I discovered, I'm a big hot rodder. I've been involved in motorsports and hot rods my entire adult life.
Right.
And when I was racing, I knew, all right, I'd go to the track and I'd race, and I was a horrible driver. I hit everything but the lottery. So I'd get back home Monday morning after a race weekend, and I had a list of stuff I needed. And I would go on Summit. and I would order what I need because I knew, like clockwork, that I would have that stuff in time to fix the car and be ready for the next race weekend. So they were always my go-to people, and so building that kind of process within your company gives your customers that kind of expectation that you're going to perform. But it doesn't take people, like that Mazda store.
Yeah, right.
They've added $120,000, $130,000 a month in revenue to their operations without adding one person. It's just process, and that's somebody that's getting started out. That's really all you need. You need the platform, obviously, to make it successful, but then we develop those processes, and that's the other thing that I did not have when I started out is there was no support. I had a platform.
Yeah.
Here you go. It's X number of dollars a month. Congratulations. Good luck.
Yep.
Now we've got an unbelievable customer experience team that, I mean, these guys and girls are just incredible. And so now you've got coaching available. So that learning curve has been flattened a lot. And
correct.
So getting started is, it's less expensive in the dealership world. The cost of getting started in e-commerce, if you compare it to, the service department having to lease a new front end machine or a new tire machine, the monthly cost, the platform is, a quarter or less of a monthly bill than those items are. So it's not a big investment to get in, get started, get your hands dirty, and go for it.
That's awesome.
No, I think that's great because if I'm sitting there as a dealer or a parts manager, some of them are probably sitting there thinking, now I need to hire an e-commerce manager. I need somebody who's super techie. Now I'm going to get this platform. Nobody's going to know how to use it. It's going to be so complicated. But what you're saying to them is you can simply repurpose the staff that you have there. There's no reason why they can't be trained to use this platform. It's not you're having to go out and get new resources. Your people that are there, can easily learn this platform. That's great.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And in the beginning too, when you're starting out, of course, things grow. You're not going to be doing $50,000 a month one. It's just not reality. Yep. So you've got time in the beginning. So you set up these daily processes that are going to make you successful as far as a searchability angle, Google and whatnot. There's things that you do in-house to help that. And you just tell your staff, I don't want you to make a project out of this. That's not my intent, because that it gets to the point where you get discouraged and you give up. I want you to take 15 minutes every morning, and I want you to do this for 15 minutes and then go on with your regular day. And it's amazing. I mean, it's just mind-blowing how much progress you can make in 6 months by just dedicating 15 minutes a morning.
Yeah. Yep.
And then, of course, as the orders come in, maybe you dedicate a half an hour every day, and then it's 2 hours. And before you know it, you're doing $100,000 a month, and you're doing well.
Yeah, that's awesome, Mike. So as we have, a growing listener base, obviously they can reach out to the Auto Trends guys, myself, Lucas, and we can get them in touch with you and connect with you. Do you have any forms of communication that somebody could maybe get in touch with you if they have a question or advice, or just trying to tap into that 40-year knowledge bank that that sits on your shoulders and get some advice, anything like that?
Absolutely. I'm always available. That's what I'm here for, is, e-commerce performance and knowledge transfer. I mean, so they can reach me at my email, which is mking@revolutionparts.com. Always answer emails, usually within an hour, if not sooner. And,
awesome. Fantastic.
And, even if it's just if they just want to pick my brain for a little bit before they decide whether they want to dive off that cliff and get into e-commerce.
Totally.
Which they really, a parts operation nowadays has limited ways to grow revenue.
Yep.
So, this is a great way to add another revenue stream to the operation. Yep. So, you really should be thinking about it.
Awesome. Well, folks, I'm going to tell you, it's been an awesome episode. Mike King, he is a visionary. He is the man, the OG, ties to all of these successful friggin' parts. I'd like to actually move into his house just so I can become smarter and I can
Right.
become better. I'm not sure if he's going to cook me pancakes or not,
Yeah.
but to be determined. But I'm going to tell you, folks, if you have questions, if you have anything that you think you need to know, Mike King is an incredible resource. The guy, from where he came from to where he is now, it's just been awesome to see. As always, we are the Auto Trends Podcast. The best way to support us is to like and subscribe. Again, that is what keeps this going. We are here for the industry, the voice of the industry. We are the Auto Trends Podcast.